Hello, everybody. I am doing page 615 through 620, Disorders of Cognition. My name is Jaime Gutierrez, and yeah, let's get this one exciting thing over with. All right, this is my third try, all 20 minutes over. So we're doing dissociative disorders. Generally speaking, what is this? So I'm going to be touching on cognitive stimulation on the internet, delirium, neurocognitive disorders. So briefly, um, cognitive stimulation and the internet. So there was a study in Italy where there was two separate towns, and both towns had these elderly take elderly homes. They taking care of people like 65 and plus, and all the way up to 91. So there was a study taking place on these two separate towns, same study, two separate homes, where those who did want to participate, they had set up social media accounts. They can keep in contact with loved ones, playing on their tablets with, any type of mind game or cognitive stimulation was done on a day-to-day basis for about, I want to say like up to 6 months. And this happened because there was, they want to see if there was a connection between cognitive stimulation derived from the internet activities and how it activates memory from loved ones or emotional reasons, or therefore like just those who um, did not pursue online activities. And the study proven more or less that those who did participate in this online activities on a day-to-day basis or weekly basis did have a 61% of more mental sharpness, quote unquote. So that being said, they were there responsive cognitively, they were quick, they were sharp, they remembered, recalled short-term, long-term memory was there. Everything was, firing the way it should have been. And those who did not want to participate said that you cannot teach an old dog new tricks per se. So, that was just pretty much on what I read during the Mind Tech section on how, this could affect elderly and what did also happen if you don't stimulate yourself mentally with mind or internet. So also, old age is the main concern when it comes to cognitive stimulation and cognitive disorders. And neurocognitive disorders will also be touched on upon. But before we get there, we're going to talk about delirium, which is a state of mind, kind of like an anxiety state or a panic state, where you generally don't know the disturbance. It's a significant cognitive disturbance, but in a way where it could be hours, a few days, or experiences fast moving or fluctuating disturbances at attention, orientation, or environment. So what it's trying to say is you're being in a heightened state of agitation because of your environment or fast moving things around you, like that blur effect where you just, everything's moving slow or too fast, or you're just like tunnel vision where you don't know exactly where you're at, what's going on. And it's just overwhelming sense of unease. And that major disturbance, attention orientation develops, it becomes less clear, and it creates like an illusion sense, really, like I touched upon. So this is around like 17% of patients experience this before having, which greatly increases, the likelihood of you having a neurocognitive disorder. So this is kind of like the bridging between normal, or quote unquote what is normal, normally like healthy brains, versus what is leading into a neurocognitive disorder such as Alzheimer's. And before we get there, what is the issue at hand really is the neurocognitive disorders affects attention, perception, like motor skills, so like driving, things like that, planning and decision making, language ability, social awareness, things of that nature. So like your ability to talk, where you're at, what's going on around you, your mental sharpness, quote unquote. You don't know what's going on, like how if everything's okay, like you're just, not there 100% as you should be. Like you feel you're operating like at 50% or 60% when you should be operating like at least 90%. So all this takes into effect, but again, what we talk about is neurocognitive disorders, major neurocognitive disorders, excuse me, and mild neurocognitive disorders. So this right here, what I just briefly talked about again about planning, decision making, attention, motor skills, language, and social awareness. All of these categories are going to be the same, regardless if it's a major or mild. It's just the severity of how on a scale of 1 to 10. So again, mild to major, same cases overall across the board. It's just where if it's major or mild. So it could be a day, it could be a week, it could be a month. This is the only thing that's going to determine from a major to a mild neurocognitive disorders. And touching on our favorite topic is going to be the bread and butter of this slide is Alzheimer's. And this is the most popular sense of neurocognitive disorder. So Alzheimer's, we have over here a healthy brain, or, a general brain right here on the left side. On the right side, you'll see an Alzheimer's brain. Excuse the presentation or the picture didn't come out amazing. Uh, so over here, you'll have the senile plaques. These are these little ball-like things, look like little like spikes. I know the picture's not the greatest, but they're over here on this right slide, in the far right slide. You'll see in this picture over here, these little like reddish balls look like spikes. Usually speaking, a brain with 65 and up will have maybe one or two, very few, but those with Alzheimer's will have at least like 5, 10, a lot more than it should be. So again, that is a sign when you go to the doctors, they will look for these type of senile plaques. If they see a lot, then that's when they will determine that your case of Alzheimer's is severe or how severe. And the neurofibrillary tangens are these little purple things that like the proteins of the brain in your hippocampus, which determine the extraordinary number of them also within the cells. This is these forms extraordinary. So again, if you with the brain of 65 plus, you'll see like a few, but when you see more, then more diseases are likely to follow suit. So this is kind of the inflammation of what the brain and how it starts to deteriorate over time. And usually speaking, you have early Alzheimer's and you have late onset Alzheimer's. So generally speaking, the early Alzheimer's is cases that are 65 and under. So these, again, could be affected of stress or, genetics play a role in this as well. So it's just a case by case study. It varies really. And late Alzheimer's, generally speaking, is those of 65 and up. Or these are the ones you'll see most common, where it's like the older people were like 75 and 90 and 80. These type of people are the most likely, or the late onset Alzheimer's. So Alzheimer's, when you are diagnosed, you have a brain expectancy lifespan of 8 to 10 years given, especially with the late onset Alzheimer's is generally what you're looking at. But the early onset and some rare cases of late, you will see a 20-year case or lifespan of your brain can survive up to 20 years, possibly. So again, it's just case by case study, depends, genetics, all of this stress, all of this plays a role into Alzheimer's. So also before I go, I just want to talk about the alternative, I can't talk right now, my brain, I think I have Alzheimer's. So the genetics theory of Alzheimer's alternative, there we go, and short-term memory. So again, long-term memory and how the brain is structured. So you'll see over here on the left, you'll see a healthy brain, and on the right, you'll see an Alzheimer's disease brain. But what I want to leave you with is the brain, the way it's structured and how it has short-term memory and long-term memory and how it separates it and how your brain will start with, your neighbor from 3 years ago. It stores in the short-term memory bank, and then it will do a working memory process into a long-term memory bank. And then the brain structures, especially how important the memory is, will determine if it's worthy of a long-term memory. And this right here is where you'll see the Alzheimer's takes into a curious effect and how it affects everybody through genetics, through short-term, early Alzheimer's, late onset Alzheimer's. This all plays a role into the memory banking system right here. And what it does is, well, you know, how major of a role this is, generally speaking. So why is this important is because the brain is structured in such a way where it can dispose of short-term memory versus long-term memory and the working memory, and how this role gets targeted by the Alzheimer's directly is a first uh, case, and how the retrieval of this data and information becomes so corrupted and deteriorated, and it will affect people's moods. People that are usually are happy and they do have Alzheimer's, you will see them become more aggressive or erratic, and these type of dispositions or outliers, I should say. It is again case by case, through genetics, through predisposed of, if your both parents have it, it's more likely than if one parent or one family has it, versus stress plays a role. Again, um, all these play a role, and your age as well. So just take care of yourself. This is very interesting, and how the alternative genetic theory of Alzheimer's, how the study of Notre Dame, Connecticut chapel in the morning, and how the famously ongoing sorry, can't talk, 30, pretty much saying that there was a study over 30 years in Notre Dame chapel about, about the genetics, and how shedding a light on development of, you know, processing Alzheimer's disease and neurocognitive disorders, that how it affects early, middle, and late stages of life, and how eventually onset such a cognitive disorder, and shed more light onto this type of, you know, thing, and how it affects people and everyone, loved ones, how you forget those you loved, you spent over your whole lifetime building with. So, just want to touch about how memory gets affected by this, and how the brain is set up, and how interesting this is. And thank you again for giving me your time. Have a good one.